New stirring up hate crime legislation has been put forward here in Scotland. The new hate crime bill covers offences on grounds such as race, religion, sexual orientation, with a standalone offence of misogynistic harassment also being looked at. Now, right off the bat, what screams equality about having misogyny as a hate crime but not misandry? Here we go again. How many times have I made videos in the past of these arseholes trying to push forward protections to cover women and misogyny, and it never seems to get implemented because they're always met with a barrage of backlash, or at the very least pushback, for people saying that misandry should also be made a hate crime. But here we go again. Second of all, the people pushing for, or the people that pushed, I should say, for protections surrounding race, these people don't believe in race, and you notice that time and time again when you hear them speak or you read articles that they have been quoted in or they've published themselves. They only ever talk about race when they're talking about hate crime statistics based on aggravated by prejudice relating to race, because it's white people, they're racist, but all the way through the rest of their speech, their article, or whatever it may be, it's ethnicity. They don't believe in race, it's a social construct. And of course, religion. Christians in Scotland get arrested for supposedly hate preaching on the street, but yet Muslims we bend over backwards for. What the fuck is happening to my country? And why the hell do people not seem to give a rat's ass about it? I am sick of this double standards, this two-tier system that has been implemented here by a bunch of wankers that pretend that they're nationalists. That's how they worm themselves in. That's how they manage to obtain full power over this country. But people fawn over the arseholes in that parliament. None of them give a rat's ass about you, or your family, or this country for that matter. They're spitting in the face of people that have died for your country. People currently protected by specific laws on the basis of disability, race and related characteristics, religion, sexual orientation and transgender identity. The new bill adds age to the list and would allow gender to be added at a later date. Yeah. Scotland's Justice Secretary, Humza Yousaf, described the new bill as an important milestone in protecting victims. You grandstanding, virtue-signalling wanker. I hate that man. Not tolerated, he said. By creating robust laws for the justice system, Parliament will send a strong message to victims, perpetrators, communities and to wider society that offences motivated by prejudice will be treated seriously and will not be tolerated. Oh, you tell him, Hamza boy. Stirring up of hatred can contribute to a social atmosphere in which discrimination is accepted as normal. This is the same Humza Yousaf that has an issue with the Scottish Parliament being too white, you know? Who are these people to tell us what we can and cannot say in our own country? I'm sorry, but this has got to fucking stop. And second of all, this is the same Scottish National Party who seem to think that Muslims deserve hate crime protections but not Christians. Why is that? They used Christchurch as an excuse to give a legal definition of Islamophobia and give them full protection, which really amounts to pandering. Then they were asked if the same protections could be applied to Christians when the Sri Lanka bombings happened. What did they do? Dismissed it. This is what we're dealing with here. They dismissed it. Police Scotland has confirmed that it recorded 92 transgender hate crimes. Again, this is the same Scottish government that imply that mean words on Twitter are enough to be constituted as hate. And as for these statistics relating to hate crimes, how many of them are actually convictions? Somebody phoning the police who's got half their hair shaved off and the rest of it dyed blue, who has in their Twitter bio, my views are my own, and seems to think they live in a fucking patriarchy, are not really people I want to be taken seriously when they pick up the phone to complain about something. Meanwhile, a report from the Crown Office said that there were 284 charges aggravated by disability prejudice. So, recorded charges. There's it right in your face. Didn't take too long. I haven't read through this article. Mr. Yousaf added that every citizen had a responsibility. So it's not the Scottish people anymore. It's every citizen that lives in our country, but it's not our country anymore because we're all Scottish. So every citizen had a responsibility to adapt and conform to this nonsensical pandering, this nonsensical liberal bullshit, in order to ensure Scotland is the inclusive and respectable society that the BAME community want, that the communists want, that Nicola Sturgeon and the feminists want. Not what I want, not what Scottish people should want. Lord Bracadale's proposed that gender should be added to hate crime laws, but it was criticised by leading women's organisations. They proposed a standalone offence of misogynistic harassment. That is right. They had an issue with the fact that male and female should be added. They had an issue with misandry being incorporated. They want a standalone misogynistic harassment offence to be implemented. They want protections for women but not men, and the government's going to give it the fucking go ahead. Mr. Eustace said he was clear that we must do more to tackle misogyny. We'll take your wife's veil off then, pal. New legislation to give greater protection for victims of hate crime has been introduced to the Parliament. The bill seeks to modernise, consolidate and extend existing hate crime law, which is fit for the 21st century, Agenda 21. I hate that. Because what is the difference between the 20th century and the 21st century? Because back then, that was modern for them. Alongside the legislation being introduced, a working group will take forward work on a standalone offence for misogynistic harassment. What about misandry? Oh, I forgot. That encompasses white boys, doesn't it? That encompasses white men. The same as you couldn't allow protections for Christians because that encompasses white men. You can't have that. Every other group's protected under various characteristics, but white men, white boys, can't be having that. Can't be fucking having that in our own country. The draft legislation updates the list of characteristics protected under hate crime legislation and proposes the addition of age to this list. Yes, that's right. Let's put age in there, you know. If we don't listen to the 6-year-old who's learned about climate change, this text as a hate crime. When there is a statutory aggravation for offences motivated by prejudice. How do you know it's motivated by prejudice? How do you know it's motivated by prejudice? And the goalposts, they continuously expand to everything now it's encompassed. Yusuf said this new hate crime bill is an important milestone by creating robust laws for the justice system. It sends a strong message to victims, perpetrators, communities and to wider society that offences motivated by prejudice will be treated seriously and will not be tolerated. Ugh. Stirring up of hatred can contribute to a social atmosphere in which discrimination is accepted as normal. Our legislation, if passed, would offer great protection for those who experience this kind of behaviour, and only certain groups experience this kind of behaviour, don't they, Hamza? Because white man bad, yeah? White man fucking bad. We all have a responsibility to challenge prejudice in order to ensure that our country, not yours, ensures Scotland is an inclusive and respectful society we want it to be. And I'm sorry if anybody listens to this and thinks I'm being rather callous, but, you know, this has got to stop. It's got to stop. This is our country. It's not yours. We'll consider whether a with Lord Bracadale in his review of hate crime legislation, he recommended that gender should be added to hate crime law. Leading women's organisations were strongly opposed to this approach. Of course they were. They proposed a standalone offence of misogynistic harassment, which has been developed, which the Scottish Government committed to in principle. So it didn't commit to misandry, but it committed to principle. Are you proud of yourself for voting for Nicola Sturgeon and any you SNP fanboys? A working group will be established to take this forward and consider how the criminal justice system deals with misogyny. And what does misogyny mean? Well, misogyny used to mean contempt for women, hating women as a whole. But now it's expanded to absolutely everything you can think of. Disparities are misogyny. Saying nasty things is misogyny. Apparently stereotyping is misogyny. Assuming their gender is misogyny or transphobic, take your pick. You know, I could go on. The list is endless. It's things said to female politicians on Twitter that also gets said to men, but because it was said to a woman, that is classed as misogyny to these people. A working group will be established to take this forward and consider how the criminal justice system deals with misogyny, including whether there are gaps in the law that could be filled with a specific offence of misogynistic harassment. The group will also consider whether a statutory aggravation and or stirring up of hatred offences in relation to the characteristics of sex should be included within hate crime law. Well, if it's not going to be for men and women, then there's no point in implementing it. Well, but I thought this was about equality, because all I seem to see, whether it's human rights or hate crime laws and whatnot, or protections in general, it seems to be about bolstering everybody up, bar white men and white boys. The bill includes a power to allow the characteristics of sex to be added by regulations at a future date. Yes, at a future date. So if they can't quite get it through just now, they can do it later. Mr. Yusuf continued, I am also clear that we must do more to tackle misogyny. What about misandry, you dick? And the government is committed in principle to developing a standalone offence which would criminalise serious misogynistic harassment. Oh, fuck off. Statutory aggravation in hate crime contexts is where the offender demonstrated or was motivated by malice or ill will based on a listed characteristic or characteristics. You know, so if they didn't have this list, this would exist. But because you've created a list, now all of a sudden their motivation could be motivated by anything that you've put on said list. It just makes no sense. If the offender is found guilty, the court must take aggravation into account when determining the sentence. Stirring up of hatred is behaviour that encourages others to hate a particular group. Stirring up of hatred is behaviour that encourages others to hate a particular group. The ongoing focus of the Scottish Government is on responding to the coronavirus outbreak. However, the remit and membership of the working group on misogynistic harassment will be announced at an earliest date possible, and their work will begin shortly. I'm so excited for this. I can't contain myself.